Good evening, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started. Before we get started, if you have filled out a speaker request form, we're having Heidi go back out. If you could please try to identify your area of concern. In other words, that there's a specific area within the plan. What we're going to do is we'll do a short presentation, and I think to try and keep this in an orderly manner, what we'll do is we'll take each different area one step by one step. So if you could somewhat identify the area, say if it's West Boulevard or the YMCA or 5th Street, if you could just identify your area of concern and then put that back on your speaker request form. That way we can sort them all together, and we'll take everybody on the single issue. With that, as Heidi's handing those out, she's going to have to take a roll call. Mr. Preston, could you just call the roll, please?
Chapman.
Here.
Okrepke.
Here.
Weifenbach.
Here.
Martinson.
Here.
LaCroix.
Here.
Hadcock. Here. Kroger.
Here.
Olson.
Here.
Quaker. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you. And we're going to give everybody just a chance. Where'd Heidi? We're going to help Heidi out a little bit here. Is there anybody that had turned in a speaker request form that Heidi has not gotten back to? If you could just sort of raise your hand as she's going by so we can sort of identify that area. Heidi is the attractive blonde-haired gal in the back of the room. Okay. I was trying to compliment. I think we'll go ahead and get started. If you haven't had the opportunity to identify your area of concern, if you could catch Heidi in the back of the room there, we'll go ahead and start the presentation. If you can do that during the presentation, we'd appreciate it. And of course, if you don't get a chance to get to her, we will certainly call upon you as we go through and make sure that you get to also speak. Just a couple of reminders: if you have a cell phone or a pager, if you could please turn those off or turn those to vibrate, we'd appreciate it. The other thing, of course, is we always keep our decorum in this room, and that is a reminder that we certainly want to hear from every single one of you, but we want to hear from you when it's your turn to speak. So we'd appreciate either no applause, no talking while other people are at the podium. We'd appreciate that. With that, Monica, do you want to go ahead and start the presentation, please? Oh, there's Dawn. There's Dawn. By the way, the rule is if your cell phone goes off, you buy everybody donuts the next morning. So, John, was that you? No, okay. Very good. And as she's getting ready, the way we're going to approach this tonight is the fact that we'll actually start with a short presentation, discuss some of the basics, and then I believe staff has some recommendation based upon some of the public input we've received in the last 2.5, 3 weeks. And then what we will do is we'll take each area of concern one by one till we get to the end. We'll have people come up, actually give your testimony when we get to your area of concern. With that, Monica, if you go ahead and please start.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. We're going to be talking about the downtown parking plan. In 1949, Rapid City actually had a Rapid City plan. Oh. Let me see. Can you hear me now?
Well, that's a tech. Can you go ahead and turn the mics up a little bit higher, please?
In 1949, the city of Rapid City had a plan, and in that plan, it identified deficiencies in off-street parking in the central business district. We also had a plan in 1991 for a downtown master plan, and in this plan, it also recommended to increase the number of spaces in the highest use areas and also improve management of all the spaces. And then in 2007, the Parking Committee, as a part of the Mayor's Downtown Revitalization Task Force, began to develop a downtown parking plan. We had an open house on June 24th, 2008. We received a significant number of comments, and based on those comments, we made revisions to the plan. This revised plan was presented to the City Center Revitalization Task Force on June 27th, 2008, and approved. It then went on to the City Council on July 21st, 2008. At City Council, there was concern that we had not gotten enough public input, and there were people in the area that had not been notified. So as directed by City Council, we sent out notices to all property owners and addresses that would be impacted by this plan to invite them to tonight's meeting so the council could have the opportunity to hear the comments on that. Since that, and then I'm just going to kind of go over the highlights of what the plan is composed of. One of the primary reasons for doing this plan was to provide consistent boundaries for ease of identification for customers and employees. Also, every single parking meter will have a free 15-minute button. There'll be a push button on there if you just need to drop off your dry clean or run some paper in or something like that. All of the meters will have a button. You can push it, run in, not have to feed the meter, and come back out. That was something else that was requested as we were going through this. All of the meters and posts will be colored to differentiate the time limit. And Lieutenant Johns from the police department, there's a sample meter up here. That one has a red head on it, and there's also a blue head sitting next to it. We could get those in different colors and determine what color we wanted to be 2 hour, 4 hour, 10 hour. So when you're driving down the street, you could identify what the time limit of those meters and not park in a 2 hour spot thinking that you were parking in a 10 hour area. The meters will also, all of the meters will be equipped to handle a parking card. There'll be several kiosks located throughout the city, probably here in this building, the county courthouse, and a couple of other key locations downtown where you can add money to the card. Cards can be used on all meters, and if you've fed the meter for 10 hours and you get called out and you need to leave in 4, you can insert the same card into the same meter and receive a refund on that time that you have not used. Different meters will have meters that allow you to put money to up to 2 hours, and those will be 50 cents an hour, or for an 8-hour day, $4 a day. There'll be meters that allow you to feed the meter up to 4 hours, and that'll be 25 cents an hour or $2 a day. And then the up to 10 hours will be 25 cents an hour or basically $1 a day. In the areas that do not have meters, we've talked about a graduated parking fine. And basically what this would be is that your first ticket in 6 months is free. It's a courtesy ticket. It's to remind you that there aren't meters in these locations, but there is a time limit. There is a 2-hour time limit, and it's especially to help be more friendly to the visitors and tourists in the area that may not understand that there's a 2-hour limit on Main and St. Joe. The second ticket in 6 months is going to be a $10 ticket. If you get 3 tickets in 6 months, that third ticket's going to cost you $15, and the fourth ticket, or 5 or 6, or whatever, anything out of 4 and above, will be $20 a ticket. In order to start the count over again, you can't have a ticket within 6 months, and then so basically you can get 2 free tickets a year. Where will the additional revenue from the meters be spent? Basically, all of the revenue that would be generated by the parking meters would be designated to go into the Parking Lot and Area Enterprise Fund. The Enterprise Fund can only be spent for additional parking structures, maintenance of parking, and enforcement or administration related to the Parking Lot and Area Enterprise Fund. So that's the only place that the money can be used. This is and again, there's the meter up there, but this is a picture of a proposed meter. You can see there's the button that you could push to get the free 15 minutes, and then there's also the slot there for the prepaid parking card. Because we've had a couple of months since we've had a public meeting on this, I have been receiving significant public comment because there were people that didn't know about the plan, and as a result of that, this was the plan that was presented at the end of June and was brought to the council at the end of July. I'm not going to go over every single comment that I've received. Those are posted online. but there were some areas where we got significant comment, and so we've kind of looked at those areas to try and see, is there any way that we can address the comments that we've received or partially address them, and that's kind of what I wanted to go over now. The West Boulevard District has concerns with having meters in the historic districts, and I don't want to take away from what they're trying to say tonight, but have had conversations with several people in the area. What we're proposing is, because both Quincy and Columbus, between West Boulevard and 9th, are in the West Boulevard Historic District, in order to satisfy those concerns, we would propose to remove the meters and not have those meters. Just leave them kind of the way they are, unrestricted parking. You can park there all day, no meters, and leave that the way that that is. The next change is in front of the YMCA. Their main concern to date has probably been the addition of meters, but I've also received a number of concerns and complaints that 2 hours really isn't long enough in order to go in, change, work out, especially if you're bringing your family or kids. And so one way to address that is to increase the meters in front of the YMCA from 2 hour to 4 hour. The other benefit with that is the 4 hour meter is only $0.25 an hour versus a 2 hour meter is 50 cents an hour. So there is some reduction in cost by going to the 4 hour meter in that location. Then on Mount Rushmore Road, we have one block there that we had shown as 10 hour. That's really kind of a commercial. There's a new bank going in there. We are just proposing to change that to 2. I don't think we've gotten significant comments. It just made a little bit more sense as we've been reviewing this. We'd also had some concerns, and valid ones, that why would we have the street by the CSAC building here free? What we've proposed to do is to put meters in there, and because the city has added the additional lot east of 5th Street, what we could do is we've already moved some people into that lot, and we could expand the visitor parking within the city's parking lot there, and then that way there'd still be ample free parking for people that needed to do city business, but the on-street parking would be metered. This is on St. Joe between 5th and 4th Street near Hardee's. Again, this wasn't anything that came from the public so much as more of a review of the plan. That block does not get used heavily. A lot of times you'll see buses parked there. This was just an opportunity to provide some longer term parking, because as we've gone through the plan, we have removed a lot of the 4 and the 10 hour parking because of business concerns. This was a block we felt we could increase to 4 hours and not negatively impact a business, but still provide those visitors that wanted to spend more than 2 hours in the downtown a place to park. And then another area of concern that we've heard a lot of concerns from is the businesses along Main Street, particularly between 4th and 2nd. They're really trying hard to redevelop that area, get new businesses in there, and they really feel like the on-street parking is critical. I believe that they would rather see the 2. The 4 provides some longer term parking, but still would not necessarily be filled up by employees. We felt that this may be a good compromise, and I'm sure they're here to talk about that tonight. Again, these were just things as we were going through the plan, and as I've heard public comments over the last couple months, some things that made sense, but again, they're just lines on paper, so as we go through the meeting, we can change whatever the council feels. And that kind of just identifies the areas where we've made the changes, and with that, we can turn it over to public comment.
Okay, very good. I'm going to go to the council very quickly here to see if they have any questions for Monica. Any questions? If not, we'll go into public. If you do, please turn your light on. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It would be helpful, I would guess, to leave the map up there with identifying the ABC sections for people to address.
Yep.
Sorry.
Anything
I'll
else,
put it back.
Karen? Okay, we'll get that up there just real shortly. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monica, just the changes that you made, are they available to the public here?
Because there hasn't been any action on those changes, I haven't done anything other just to give council some ideas of where I've been getting the comments and some solutions that could address those comments. But no, I mean, I haven't printed anything or made any actual document and changes until I had some approval. And I'm sure that every area that I've talked to tonight, there's somebody in the audience to talk to, and they may be able to say that yes, that change would be good, or still want more comments. And I think we can make this kind of almost an interactive thing. I can change the colors as we discuss each area. And then what we can do is, at the end of the meeting, we can produce a final map and have that posted online tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay. Ron, anything else? Very good. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Monica, thank you for all the work on this. Just to let you know, the link for the website is not working, so you can't access any of this information through our website, or at least right now you can't.
Okay.
The next thing, I had a question about the meters. You said color-coded so that local people would start to become educated that a red meter means something and a blue meter indicates another length of stay. How about anything on the post itself to indicate 4 hours, 10 hours? So for those people who are not from our community, I mean, how would they know just looking at a red meter what differentiates that from a blue one? I just think we should give some thought to that.
I think that we can probably find a way to accommodate that. And I'll leave this one up because that has the changes.
Okay, very good. Malcolm, did you have anything else, sir?
Just one other comment. I know Monica said something about she could change the color of the lines. Just speaking personally, it would be helpful not to change the lines.
Okay.
Because, I mean, my understanding is this is public comment. I mean, someone could get up and say, let's change it red, and the next person could say, let's change it blue. So I would hope that we wouldn't change any lines tonight, just at least take the comment from the public.
Here's my suggestion, and that is the fact that if we could go through each one of these identified areas, have public comment, and then have comment from the council, and then if the council so desires to make change to that one specific area, and that's when Monica could actually change the color, and then we move on to the next, and by the end of the night, we may have a map that everybody could agree upon, if that's all right with the council. Let's also go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Monica, the meters in the historic district, could you name, is it just the blue area? I mean, what are you talking about? What streets?
This street right here, it's just this block, sorry. It's the block of Quincy between West Boulevard and 9th and the block of Columbus. So those two blocks are actually within the West Boulevard district, historic district.
So it'd be Quincy and...
Quincy and Columbus between West and 9th.
The red areas that are on our old
Yeah,
map.
actually, I should change that color so
What you had,
that it doesn't
because you had red on that whole square there.
do purple.
Thank you.
Those two.
Okay, anything else, Deb? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. Monica, I have a couple of questions if we could answer sometime this evening or perhaps at a future meeting. First of all is I have a map here from the June 24 open house, and it shows 4-hour meters on Kansas City Street. And in the new recommendations, the recommendation is now to go to 2 hours.
The map that was presented at the June 24th public hearing, we got significant number of comments. When we took that to the City Center Revitalization Task Force, we presented the comments that we received at that meeting and made changes. So the map that council actually saw at the end of July is the map you have on the dais. It's from the June 27th. There were changes made from the public meeting at the City Center Revitalization Task Force.
And so people do realize that when we go from a 4-hour meter to a 2-hour meter, the cost of the parking doubles.
That's correct.
Okay. And do you recall why
There were a significant number of businesses on there that felt the 4-hour was too long. It didn't provide adequate turnover for their customers.
And then the other question, a couple more questions. One of the other questions I had is, what would the downside be of going from 4 hours to 10 hours near Hardee's to the east? Instead, you suggested going from 2 to 4. What would the ramifications be of taking it up to 10?
On the block
On St. Joe?
in this area here? Is that I don't know that there would be any, except that you would. One of the comments we had received from downtown businesses and even from when Roger Brooks was here and stuff is that 2 hours is not adequate time to really enjoy the downtown. If you put 10-hour meters there, you're more than likely going to have downtown employees park there, and they're going to fill those up all day. So I think that there is a need for something longer than 2 and shorter than 10 to allow, and that's only really a block from the main business district of downtown on Main and St. Joe. I think that's why we were looking at 4, but definitely if council felt there was more of a need for 10, I don't think there'd be an issue there. There's not that many people that park there now.
So are 2, 4, and 10 the only increments available from the manufacturer?
That's the only what we've put out there now, but you can program the meters for 15 minutes up to 24 hours. So that's what we've started working with just because it felt like it fit, but you shouldn't necessarily limit yourself to that. The meters are infinitely programmable.
So if that leads me to my last question, is the 15-minute freebie. Can you explain a little bit more how that works? If I pull into a spot that someone has just pulled out of and they have 2 minutes left,
You do have to wait for it to go to 0 before you get the free 15 minutes, because otherwise what could happen is somebody could run out there and push it, but it does have to 0 out, and JJ may be able to answer that, but my understanding is it has to 0 out before you can get the full 15 minutes. So yes, if you pulled in and there was 2 minutes left on the meter, you'd have to wait for that.
Okay.
Okay.
Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In moving forward, to make some decisions to give the staff, I have to understand some of the philosophy. So I'm looking at this map, and on Main Street in St. Joe, the suggestion is no meters at all. Can you explain to me the philosophy behind that?
There's been some discussion on that, and there's several different philosophies. One of the concerns with putting meters in there would be that there's a perception, and there's some validity to that there's the downtown shuffle now, that employees park there and they just get out and move their car every 2 hours. If we put meters in there, you could actually just go out and feed the meter. Yes, it would be more expensive, but rather than having to get in their car and move it every 2 hours, they could actually go out there and just drop another $1 or $2 in there. And so one of the things we wanted to try and really encourage was to leave those spaces on Main and St. Joe available for customers that are doing business along those roads. So that's one of the thoughts that has come up.
Kind of leads into my next question, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Understanding that, looking at some of these red arrows, or these red lines, and there's businesses in these locations yet too, and we're pushing the 10-hour parking into their business districts. Can you explain the philosophy of that? What makes one business different from the other?
Monica.
And the 10-hour is a tough one. And I think one of the things we need to realize with this is one of the recommendations in the 1991 plan was to actually manage our parking. And with this plan, I think what we would need to do is be able to evaluate the plan and find out, to change a meter, you don't have to change the meter. You could change the color of the head and you change the programming. So it would be a very simple matter to change a 2-hour to a 4-hour, or a 4-hour to the 10-hour. The other thing with this plan, what we're trying to do is be able to build more parking structures. If we had adequate parking structures, we could get rid of all of the on-street 10-hour parking, because the employees in the downtown would actually have a place to park all day. So I think we need to a certain extent, address the 10-hour, and from the most part, where we have the existing 10 hours on this map, for the most part, that's unregulated parking now. People can park there all day. There are some areas where that's not, but in general, we've tried to put the 10-hour where it's unregulated in the outer skirts. But yes, by far, nobody wants 10 hours in front of their business.
Yeah, I guess I have a little bit of an understanding, but I still don't understand the philosophy by moving the parking from one person's business to another person's business and saying you're going to get stuck with this. So,
we were trying to be consistent. We were trying to, right now there's some blocks that have 2-hour parking, 4-hour parking, all in one block, where they have free parking on one side. And so we were looking at consistency and keeping all blocks the same, and then also keeping the shorter time limits on the inside of the downtown, closer to the center of downtown, and kind of moving out with the longer time limits. It was just a consistency. We didn't look at specific businesses or try and target anybody. We just tried to do the best that we can and move the longer term parking on the outside of the area.
I'm still struggling with that philosophy, Monica, not to put you on the spot, but understanding, I guess I don't understand the difference in businesses. Is there statistics or something that shows that people, I mean, they have a different habit pattern if they park at one person's business or have 10-hour parking versus no meters at all?
Monica, I think where he's heading is the difference between retail and more of a professional type office setting, the difference between downtown and some of the streets a block or two off.
On the Main and St. Joe versus the outside, is that?
You know, Monica, I'll listen to the public input and then I'll
Sorry.
try to see if I can gather that. Thank you.
Okay. Let's go to Bill Okrepke, please.
Thank you very much. I've always had a passion for the downtown, and my focus has always been trying to support the businesses in the downtown area, and of course it's Main and St. Joe is really the heart of it. I'm not saying there isn't any businesses outside, but it really boils down to the two streets, St. Joe's and Main Street. I'm looking at it, and there's a couple points I'm going to make here, but I thought that we were going to consider a 3-hour parking on Main and St. Joe's. Was that ever, did that fall off the radar screen?
It was talked about at one time, but I've never gotten a lot of, I mean, I remember one meeting that we were out where there was some discussion about increasing that to 3 hour, but I really, other than at that one meeting, I didn't hear a lot of positives. That's definitely, if that's something that the community wants, the council wants, definitely.
Well, if you look at, or if you listen to Roger Brooks, it's, you know, have it open for as long as you can. Mr. Mayor, is this appropriate time to talk about ordinances that go along with this?
I think we need to get into the public comment. We've been going for about half an hour. As far as ordinances that go along with it, help me out here. What's your...
Well, I was a proud recipient of a parking ticket the other day, and at one of my many, I like to support the downtown businesses, but the I mean, I parked in front. I had some business to take care of in in front of the Journal, and I went in there and I had to put in an advertisement, and I went in there and I spent about 10 or 15 minutes making that happen. And I get in my car and I drive around and I take care of some other stuff, and my wife says, "Hey, did you put in the ad to rent the house?" So I went back there again, parked in front of the Journal, and I was there for 5 minutes, and I was a proud recipient of a parking ticket at that point. So I was there for 15 minutes at one time. I left, and I came back again. I had some other business to do in at the Journal, and I got a ticket for it. I mean, how are we going to address that? I mean, we need to talk about that, and whose side are we on here?
Okay. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and we're going to, unless there's any other lights, we're going to go and start taking public comment. And Monica, let's see. Can you put up that other screen possibly that shows sort of the numbering?
Yep.
What we'll do is we have a number of folks that are interested in the West Boulevard area. I think we'll take those first, and that is the Area A. Okay? So let me go through these, and when I get to the end, if I haven't called your name, please just, I'll ask you to raise your hand because I don't want to skip over you. The first speaker request form is from Kurt Weitzel, 817 9th Street. Now, as always, we do have a 3-minute time limit. If you could just watch the lights here, and when the light does turn red, we will ask you to wrap up.
Thank you. My name is Kurt Weitzel. I'm at 817 9th Street. And I guess I'm just wanting to speak a little bit about the consistency of the West Boulevard District. My shop is in the historic district, but I noticed that we're proposing that we get rid of the other, but mine isn't. So I'm a little bit flustered with not really knowing what to do there. If we're going to be consistent, I guess I'd ask that we're doing that. I have a financial planning firm. Many of my clients are in their elderly state. It's been a tough week. And if I come up here today and talk a little bit about this, this just kind of caps the frustration that's going on with the markets. That aside, ultimately, I guess I'm looking for consistency and West Boulevard District. I think, you know, I kind of started the whole process in talking to some of the different people in the area and making them aware of what was going on. And I feel that I'm the only business really on that part of 9th Street. There is a chiropractic clinic on the corner. She does have parking on Columbus, and or I guess that would be Columbus. And she has a parking lot that kind of is adjacent to my building. But I've arranged for parking for my employees in the alley from the person that I bought the building from, and you know, I need parking in front of my building for my employees. And I guess that's pretty much what I need to say. Thank you.
Say, Kurt, if you go over to the screen, can Monica, can you just have him sort of just point out where his spot is? I know where it's at, but
Yeah, it's on right here, on
Right
the on the west side
okay, very good.
of
Thank
9th
you.
Street. Yep, thanks.
Okay, we also have a speaker request form from John Rathforth at 926 Quincy Street.
Thank you. You've heard me come up here and talk a lot about my house, the historic McNamara house. This is a great start. I'm in Area A, excluding the 900 blocks of Quincy Street and Columbus Street. It's a good start, but it needs to go a little bit further. And I think you need to expand it. You need to go in and look at 9th Street. Near as what I could tell, I had pulled off a copy of the locales or the environs of the West Boulevard historic area, and I believe at a minimum, it also includes the west side of 9th Street between Quincy and Columbus, which is where Kurt's business is located. I want you to, as you think about this plan, obviously at a minimum, I want you to support the changes as you're looking for my house. But I want you to bear in mind that the West Boulevard area is a very fragile being. You need to be very careful with it. You need to be very careful because if you have too many intrusions, and this parking is an intrusion, if you have too many intrusions, you're going to end up with a city and a landscape that borders your downtown that's much like many major cities. It's going to be a ghetto. It's not going to be nice. So, you know, bear that in mind. Be careful with what you're doing. Second thought I'd like to leave you with, and just, you know, my quick read as a lawyer, and taking a look at the law a little bit yesterday afternoon. Of course, the Vikings were doing very badly, so I had to find something to do with my time. And, you know, just the thought in trying to exclude the West Boulevard area. I think if you include any portion of the West Boulevard area, you're going to have to go through section 11.1 approval, which means you got to go before the Historic Commission, potentially have to go before the Historic Preservation Group and peer, and you'll have to have some justifications for what you're doing. So please bear that in mind. Those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Monica, did we have you point out? Okay, it's up there. Very good. Okay. We also have a speaker request form from Ken Vogley. I believe is how you pronounce it. Dr. Vogley.
Mr. Mayor and council folks, I'm also speaking to the Quincy 9th Columbus 10-hour metering. I'd like to make a point that probably won't be brought up otherwise, and that is that the West Boulevard area actually does provide economic benefit to the city, and consequently doesn't need to be taxed by putting meters in this particular area. It provides economic benefit in two ways. Number one, its very existence causes people to come and spend time looking at the West Boulevard area, spending time in Rapid City, and then conceivably having to stay over in a motel or whatever because they spent extra time here and whatnot. And also the West Boulevard Festival brings all sorts of people in who, again, utilize the businesses in Rapid City. So I just want to point that out. Now, I just want to throw an idea out. It's probably the third rail But, you know, it strikes me that in non-metered areas, the businesses are not paying anything. And it strikes me that they should have to pay some sort of fee for every employee who works for them if they don't provide parking for that particular individual, or if they don't pay for parking in one of the city lots. So just wanted to throw that out. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Just, we're going to take just a short break. My understanding is that you folks cannot hear the speakers in the back of the room. So what we're going to do is we're going to take just about a 5-minute break. That'll allow our technician to actually take the AV system down and then bring it back up. So we're going to take about a 5-minute break. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Okay. Another question. Can everybody in the back of the room hear me now? Okay. Now we got sound. Thank you for letting us deal with the technical issues. We'll go ahead and get started here again. As soon as we'll get all the council back up. Hey, Bill, can you check and see if there's anyone in the caucus room? And while we're gathering people, we do have a speak request form from John Wagner. And Judge, I'll have you wait for just a minute while we get everybody back in. We'll just get you in position. Okay, very good. Mr. Wagner.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council, I am the issues chairman. I am the issues chairperson of the West Boulevard Neighborhood Association. Now, one of the purposes of
Say,
the West...
John, could you turn one of the mics up there? Having a hard time hearing him back. If you could just sort of speak more towards the mic, we'd appreciate it.
I was going to try to get both, but I'll try this one.
Okay, thank you.
One of the purposes of the West Boulevard Neighborhood Association is to protect the West Boulevard Historic District, in particular to, for example, protect it from commercial encroachment. Now, it is our view that parking meters are a clear symbol of commercial activity, and therefore it is a commercial encroachment on the historic district. Getting it? Okay. Therefore, the West Boulevard Association, both the board and the membership, are opposed to having the 3 streets that are currently on the plan in the future, that they should be removed from the plan. Now, I heard, of course, that 2 of them will probably be recommended to be removed. Those would be the 900 blocks of Quincy and Columbus. I also heard, and I want to correct this in 2 ways, I also heard that those 2 streets are actually in the historic district. Well, the reality is that 9th Street is also in the historic district. Now, I was mistaken when I sent you a letter to say that it was in the entire street was in the historic district. What it is the west side of 9th Street is in the historic district. The east side is in the environs of the historic district. Now, in historic district law, the environs get the similar protection as the historic district does. And then that leads to the final issue, and that is, if Quincy and Columbus are going to be removed because they're in the historic district, I think that you have to logically remove 9th Street between those 2 as well, because they are at least on the west side in the historic district, and the other side they're in the environs of the historic district. Now, we have a parking problem as it is now. The people have tolerated that parking problem for a very long time. But putting meters in anywhere in the historic district is only going to force parkers to move further into the historic district, West Boulevard, and further south. We want to avoid that. Finally, I want to just say we're looking for three things here. That, number one, all three of those streets be removed from the parking plan, not just two. Number two, that if possible, you delay a final decision on any ordinance involved until the historic district has 2 council members to represent it. The present time, as you all know, we have only 1. And I would just suggest as a possibility that if there is a delay, and of course if the streets are not removed, that the city consider a cost-benefit analysis. Of course, the benefits are going to be revenue, and the benefits are going to alleviate problems in the central district, whereas the costs are going to be the redistribution of parking outside of that area. Thank you.
Thank you. And just, you know, since we had some technical issues, we did go just a little bit long because I interrupted him about 2 or 3 times. But thank you. At this point, I just want to give everybody somewhat of a synopsis of the process. And that is the fact that tonight there is a possibility of a recommendation. But since this is an ordinance, in order for an ordinance to actually be approved, it will need to go to Legal and Finance, our Legal and Finance Committee twice. It will also be required to be in front of the City Council twice. And then it would be 20 days after the publication in the Rapid City Journal before it becomes effective. So there will be at least 4 more opportunities for everyone to actually give comment on this plan. Okay? We also have a speaker request form from Gene Kesloff at 1015 12th Street.
My name is Jean Kesloff. It is a national policy to preserve for public use historic sites, buildings, and objects of national and regional significance for the inspiration and benefit of the people. Historic Sites Act, 1935, United States Congress. I am here to pose parking meters in the West Boulevard Historic District. This is more than just about parking meters. It's about the protection of one of Rapid City's cultural resources. West Boulevard is an important contribution to our historic profile. By protecting the district, we keep our living history alive for our generations to come, generations that will have the past to learn from and from which to draw inspiration in the future.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have a speaker request form from Vince Braun, 803 West Boulevard.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thanks for the opportunity. I'm opposed to any parking meters in the historic district. And I'd just like to point out, I live at the corner of Quincy and West Boulevard, and it's probably one of the busiest intersections in Rapid City. And when we sit out on a summer day or a summer evening, it's constant traffic. Now that's something we understand, because a lot of people come to town, they want to drive up and down the boulevard. A lot of people, as they're going from one side to the other, drive up West Boulevard just for the scenery. That's the cost of living there. We're looking at a situation, though, if you put parking meters in there, now we'll have people, like was mentioned earlier, they'll move more towards our neighborhood. So we'll have cars parked there all day and traffic all day and all night. It's just not a good, feasible alternative to a property owner that, and we are worried about our property values going down if parking meters are put in that area. So we would very much be opposed to parking meters going in that area. And I agree with 9th Street. We walk in that area, and those are a lot of rental properties in that area. And you get those people, if they can't park in front of their apartment building, they're going to park over on the West Boulevard Street, and then we'll have them parking there all the time. So I really do ask that you consider this, and thanks for the opportunity to comment.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Holly LeMay, 914 Fairview.
Thank you also for the opportunity to share my opinion. I live at 914 Fairview, which is a little ways up the street, but I see a major problem with 9th Street, with any kind of parking on 9th Street, because I use that street all the time. And I don't know if you have ever noticed, but if you get past Columbus Street, there's parking on both sides of 9th Street, and those are the people that don't want to have to get a parking ticket that are already parking there. It's a safety issue. I think you really need to take a really close look at that, because what's going to happen if you put meters in from Kansas City on up as far as Columbus, that's going to force the parking even further up towards where I live on Fairview, and you'll have cars on both sides of the streets all the way up there, maybe even as far as Wilson School. So I strongly urge you to remove all parking recommendations for 9th Street as well as Quincy and Columbus. It's not just property values. It's not just an issue of convenience for the people who live there. It's a safety issue. Thanks.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Connie Kroger, 1326 St. Cloud.
Thank you. Connie Kruger. I think the quality of a city is defined by its breathing spaces, by its aesthetics, and by the visionary quality of the council. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because I am picturing those meters along the side streets of West Boulevard, and I'm picturing the many visitors that I bring to share the beauty of West Boulevard. And they will say to me, Connie, why did you not do something to prevent those god-awful meters from violating the aesthetics of this space? Even, I realize they're not going to be on West Boulevard, but even just looking down the boulevard, right now it's so heavily used that it is, there's traffic jams, cars parked all over it. And I love the word fragile. But I want you to be visionary and to picture. It's such a small space. It isn't very big. If you go to Denver, there's neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood like West Boulevard. We just have that one little street, and it enhances our entire community. And so I just ask you to really visualize what would happen and to think ahead and to protect it. And I want to be able to answer to those friends and say, I tried, I did something.
Thank you, ma'am. We also have a speaker request form from Mike LeMay, 914 Fairview.
Hello, my name is Mike LeMay. I'm on 914 Fairview Street. I wanted to thank Monica for removing the Columbus and Quincy Street meters in the West Boulevard area. But the 9th Street area is still a question, as people have brought up. And one of the things that really concerns me, besides just the historic aspect of that area, is that there's residential homes there. And I just don't think that you could imagine having a parking meter out in front of your house and what that would be like to pull up in front of your home and have a parking meter out in front. I think that's just beyond belief that anybody ever even came up with that. Anyway, I went to Boston a couple years ago and saw some historic buildings there from the 1700s and the early 1800s, and I realized at that time that those buildings had to be maintained from that period until now. You can't make a change in that area, have that go to pot, have the building torn down, and bring that history back. Once it's gone, it's gone. And you have to really keep in mind that the historic district is different than other areas of town, and that history has to be preserved. It has to be continuous. It can't be stopped at one point and then brought back again. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Pat Roseland, 1018 Fairview.
Good evening, Mayor, Council members. I'm here to oppose the parking meters on West Boulevard Historic District. As you know, West Boulevard Historic District is probably the most beautiful historic district in South Dakota. And can you, as earlier said before, picture Rapid City without West Boulevard Neighborhood Historic District? The beautiful homes, neighbors. All of us know one another here. That's what the neighborhood is about. We all know one another. And we're all here to protect the place where we live, for us and for the future of Rapid City. So again, I'm here to oppose the meters in the West Boulevard Historic District. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Stephen Brendan.
Stephen Brendan, Harmony Lane. Should I just keep my comments at this point in time to the West Boulevard issue, or?
If you could, and then
Okay.
we'll open it back up.
On the
for
West
other-
Boulevard issue, I happen to agree with the gentleman who was representing the Historic Association of West Boulevard Association. I believe that these meters going into this area are an encroachment which signals commercial is coming into the area. We already have signs of that on St. Joe. Now we've got office commercial there now coming into the downtown area. The encroachment is real. It is happening. And I think that this is just one more evidence that this is coming about, that we are seeing commercialization of this area. We also have the other areas as commercialization is creeping off of Mount Rushmore Road over towards 9th Street. We are endangering this neighborhood, and I think that we should cancel all meters on this, that we should protect this neighborhood. What's next here? We're going to have commercial development of West Boulevard. That's a high traffic area all the way up and down there. What's to stop that? This neighborhood is in danger. We need to protect it. Stop the meters from coming in.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Charles Kalpaka, 932 St. Joe. Dr. Kalpaka.
I don't have a brown T-shirt, so I'm out of that category. I own the building on the corner of West Boulevard to St. Joe, and I realize that we do have to have some parking. There are parking problems. There is a 10-hour parking to the west of my building on that property, and that goes along the Bradsky building too. That is ridiculous for that 10-hour parking because there's a lot of commercial work there in my building and in their building also. I'm speaking for myself only. And then in the front of my building, we'd have to have people coming and going at different amounts of time. That has a 4-hour parking. That's too long. So if we have to have anything, we need maybe a 2-hour parking in the front and a 2-hour on the side, and that's plenty. And I can see where the city has a hell of a big problem here. Good luck.
Oh, thank you. Okay, and just so you know, Dr. Kopecki, I actually put you back under, if anybody had written 2 different areas down, what I'm doing is putting them back in the stack to see if you want to talk when we come to the other areas. We also have a Carol Racano. Did I get that close? No. Can't quite make out the second letter there, Carol.
Carol Raccanelli.
Okay.
I work in the West Boulevard district, and I can see that the impact of the proposed parking will have an effect. I commute down the Columbus Street to get over to 11th. My students are also part of the unmentioned problem that West Boulevard deals with parking. And I can see where the proposed parking meters in the downtown area will have more people parking out farther. It is definitely going to impact West Boulevard, and I can already see my students park as far down as Columbus, and depending on what time of the academic year, it spills out towards West Boulevard from 11th to West and over. So this is only going to increase the congestion in the parking for the residents, for the students, and for the employees in that area, and so it's not going to help.
Thank you, ma'am. At this point, we have no further speaker request forms for folks in the West Boulevard area, which we have identified as Area A. If there's additional, why don't you go ahead and come up, and if you could identify yourself for the record.
My name is Mark Cook. I live at 2020 West Boulevard, and I own the property at the corner of Columbus and West Boulevard. That's a fourplex right there, and I have a disabled person that lives there. I have a single parent that lives there with 4 children, and I have college students that live up on top. So I need to have the face of the people that you're asking to fund, as I understand it from the presentation that Marcia gave, to help fund parking in the downtown area. Quite frankly, I think it's appalling that you would ask these people to fund parking in the downtown area. Now, I don't know, and I'm naive to this subject, I don't know what kind of contribution the owners of, say, the Alex Johnson or Prairie Edge or any of the other institutions downtown are making to to fund parking downtown, but to come into a residential neighborhood and ask those people to fund downtown parking, frankly, I can't figure out why you've come up with that idea. The other thing that concerns me is when you put parking meters in a residential neighborhood on Columbus and Quincy, make no mistake about it, you are degrading the value of those properties. So when you come and ask me to participate in paying for downtown parking, not only are you asking me to give you money to fund that parking, but you are also degrading the value of my property at the same time. The house across the street from me on Columbus, on the north end of the block, is also a fourplex. And I just happen to work with those individuals. So between the two of us and the people that live in there, you're talking about 12 cars right there on the corner of West Boulevard and Columbus, the people that live in those two particular buildings. So at any time, and remember, disabled, single family, students, those people are there during the day a lot in both of those buildings. So you've already got 12 plus cars that are in those two buildings. And when you bring other people over, you could force as many as 15 to 20 cars out onto that boulevard area. So again, I really want you to understand that if you put parking meters in there, you degrade the value of those properties. And I don't believe those particular people should be the main target of funding for downtown parking.
Thank you. Just a point of clarification, I thought Monica did a very good job as far as explaining. We have in the city of Rapid City what we call a parking lot and area fund. I don't think anybody up here had suggested that this plan somehow is going to pay for just parking improvements in the downtown area. That is a misstatement. The area and parking lot fund pays for all off-street or on-street parking throughout Rapid City, not just the downtown area, including the areas that we're talking about right here. The way we maintain those on-street parking is through the parking lot area fund. So please keep that in mind. This plan is absolutely not put out there to, quote, pay for the downtown parking. It is a parking lot and area fund, and that's what that fund is used for. It's an enterprise fund, just like many other enterprise funds that we have. With that, Dave, did you comments, please?
Good evening, Mayor, Council. My name is David Asbridge. I live at 919 Columbus Street. That's on the south side of the street. And I am too opposed to meters. But I am not opposed to some type of system that would either alleviate the parking congestion on Columbus, on Quincy, on 9th Street, between Quincy, and far beyond South Street. There are days that between Columbus and South Street is parking on both sides, and it becomes a one-way street, depending on which way you're trying to go. So something has to be taken care of there. In regards to the problem that exists on Columbus and Quincy, I could lead you through the process of what I've learned, how I've learned to live on Quincy and try and park, or Columbus. And it's very trying. I have neighbors here tonight that I'm sure are not going to speak to this issue, but you know, one thing that I would like some clarification, and I'm not going to take time out of my presentation here, but I don't know that Columbus is in the historical district. The 9th Street of Columbus, I've always felt and had learned through other processes that we are not in the historical district. Now, if we are, that's fine, but I would like to know or have clarification as to whether or not we are. The need for some type of system, and I don't think meters is the answer, because nobody wants a meter sitting out in front of their residence, but maybe there's a permitting process that the city could come up with to at least generate some revenue off of the parking that exists on Columbus. People are not going to go away whether there's a meter there or not. We have the existing problem on Columbus and Quincy. So we have to deal with that problem through this process that you're going through. So hopefully the city can come up with a solution in either a permitting process or something that's not going to restrict the beauty of the area, and come up with some revenue source to allow people to park on that street. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Marcia, did you find out, is that in the historic district or not? Okay, we'll come back. We'll get back to you, Dave. Okay, that gets us to the end of the discussion in that Area A, which is basically the west, what we're going to call the West Boulevard area. Let's open this up to council discussion, recommendations, motions. Please turn your light on. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would hope that the council wouldn't make motions and recommendations tonight. I think that's when we get in trouble, when we try to do things on the fly up here at the dais because people said, put meters in, take meters out, take them off this street. When we try to do that here without having time to take all of this into account and then look at it and then digest it all, my recommendation to my colleagues here is that we don't make motions, that at some point we send this entire plan, whatever it looks like, to legal and finance so that it can start to go through the process and all of that can be worked out there.
Okay,
of course, having heard what all of the public has said.
Okay, very good. Other additional comments? Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
I have a question for Monica or city attorney or finance officer.
Okay, go ahead, please.
Where does the fine money go? It goes into the same fund that was named earlier, right?
Yes.
And it's commingled in with the other funds.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay, anything else, Alderman Quaker? Now, let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I tend to agree with Malcolm. However, it may be appropriate to make some suggestions to the legal and finance as they deliberate this and as it moves forward. By listening to the people in the audience today, I think it would be appropriate to at least consider removing the parking meters in A, with the exception of perhaps even 9th Street. So the from 9th Street west, suggest to the legal and finance to remove those.
Okay.
I don't know how much traction that's going to get here today, but that's just a thought.
Okay. Just so you know, this is a special council meeting. There are 2 items that are listed. The first one is the presentation. The second item is recommendation. So the process itself tonight, the only thing the council can actually do is exactly what Alderman Malcolm Chapman was talking about, and that is to make recommendations. Now, we can go through each one of these one by one and make recommendations as a whole package, but just for everyone's information, this is not part of the formal adoption of the ordinance. There still has to be 4 readings, 2 at Legal and Finance and 2 at the City Council. So there will be at least 4 more public meetings for this. So let's see if there's any additional lights. And Marcia, do you have an answer? As I make you all walk all the way back over there, yes. That's all right. The question was basically the 900 block of Columbus within the historic district.
It's within the district environs, so there's a boundary right at that intersection of 9th and Columbus.
Okay.
So, I don't know if Monica can get to it from her computer and put it on the
that's right.
screen later.
The answer is yes? Okay, very good. Okay, further discussion from the council. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I heard the comment earlier about funding the downtown and looking at this plan, and it's evident to me that at some point in time, I thought we were going to come to that discussion because it's downtown that's creating the parking problem and expanded it into other areas of the downtown. And I think there's legitimacy to say that we're looking at this metering to look at a future plan for downtown that alleviates the parking, whether it's bonding for the ramps or whatever the case may be. So I want to make sure we don't take that off the table and in this discussion to understand that for a future long-term goal, that I think that there has to be taking the metered money to fund parking ramps for downtown for the people to park, or we're going to keep encroaching into the residential areas. I think that the citizens here make a good concern and have great concern for encroaching into their neighborhoods and putting meters into their front yards, which the only way I would want one is if I could get the revenue off of it. So I think that I just want to make that. And the other question I would like to have is where else does the city have leased parking that we're paying for? I know that this is the majority of it here, so I think there is some legitimacy to say that we are looking at. I mean, I think we have to look at it globally to say, in a position that if we meter this and we do it responsibly and stay out of the neighborhoods, that we have an opportunity to alleviate the problem at some time without just creating another one. So,
very good. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
My question is for Marcia Elkins.
Okay, go ahead, please.
And, Marcia, could you be more specific relating to the portions of 9th and Columbus?
I'm trying to print you a map so I can put it on the overhead here in a minute.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else, Alderman Quaker? Okay, let's go to Alderman Karen Olson.
Thank you. When I came to the meeting tonight, I assumed that we would take all the public testimony and on all the areas of interest, and then when that was finished, then the council would weigh in on the discussion. I think that there are some interconnectedness between some of the question mark areas that have been identified. So from my perspective, I would like us to hear all the public testimony, and then the council can weigh in making recommendations. And I would urge my colleagues to follow that same pattern.
Okay. We have no further lights, and we do not have a motion on the floor, so that's how we will proceed. Okay. Let's go to Alderman Deb Hadcock.
I have a question.
Okay.
Isn't there a lot of areas downtown that are called historic? Are they historic buildings? Is there a difference between historic building and historic district?
Yes.
So you have a historic district, and then you have historic buildings that aren't in historic district.
You can actually, just for clarification, you can have an historic building that is not within a historic district.
Okay.
It is specifically designated.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. You getting it up there, Marcia? Well, let's go ahead and move on here. We will go to next the 6th Street area. We have a couple speaker requests there. Kelly, is it Tumas? Okay.
I am very glad to be here. I do not own my building, I rent my building. And this is the first notice that I have actually received that there was a meeting going on. I'm not an internet user on a big scale. My leaseor never told me of any meetings. Most of the meetings I found out because I read the Journal after the meetings had already taken place. So thank you for inviting me. I own a dancewear shop. We sell skates. We sell dance supplies, things to itty-bitty people. And being that our street is not circled, I'm assuming it's not a concern to you guys, even though our area has made phone calls to our representative here.
Just for clarification, the areas that we circled were typically ones that we got written responses from. So,
okay, I made a written response. Anyway, I am concerned just about the fact that right now in my building, 628 6th Street, I have office buildings that are above me that are leased by Dream Designs. Those people, we have 2-hour non-metered parking right now, go outside and they park and they do the little move the car game. They park for 2 hours and they move across the street and then they move somewhere else and they do that. I pay $32 a month to park in the lot. I understand that there's not any other spaces available because I have asked left to be leased in that spot, but I don't mean this mean, but for the people that are above me, being that I am dealing in a retail business with little children, a mother with 3 children and a baby stroller is going to walk as little amount of possible as she has to. If she has a choice of going to the mall, even though I know that's a lot of walking, she can park for free, okay? If she has to pay to go in front of my store with kids in tow, she may or may not stop. And that's a concern for me. It's also a concern that, like I said, the people above me get to play the parking move to one different location to another location game. I sit and look at Kansas City Street, who has the beautiful meters all the way down it, and no one uses them because they have to pay over there and they don't have to pay where we are. It sounds very mean, but I would like those people above me to be as inconvenienced as possible and have to pay like I do to park. And so just take that into consideration. It is a retail business, me and Roger Fry, and Eclipse is across the street from us. We are retail space. Retail people need to come in and out quickly. And before it was 10-hour meters that were proposed. I see tonight that it has been changed to 4, but 4 is still a long time. People above me only have to go out twice to feed those. So I'm not exactly sure what your plan can be. It's hard. You're not going to win either way you go, but something has to be done.
Thank you, Kelly. We also have a speaker request form from Roger Fry.
Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you. I'm Roger Fry. We own Roger Fry's Paint and Supply at 626 6th Street. Right now we're enjoying our 25th year in business. It's a family-owned business, and we have 7 other employees that live off of our selling. Right now we nourish probably up to as many as 100 customers a day. Now if we get to 4-hour meter parking in front of our building, it's going to hurt our business quite a bit. I can't understand why there's the blue line between the 2 yellow lines there on St. Joe and on Kansas City. But the 6th Street's got the blue line, just like you want us not to have the business. But we really feel that we are getting shortchanged here just a little bit. We have a lot of customers, and they're not going to, like the previous speaker, a lot of the places up above us park there for 4 hours or more and move their cars. But we're not going to get our customers turnover like we get right now, because they're not going to come down to a downtown paint store and not find a place to park. So it's kind of disturbing to us that we have been there 25 years and all of a sudden everything comes to a change, and our customers aren't going to like that change as well as we don't like that change. But please consider changing that area to a different 2-hour meter or no meters at all would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And we also have a speaker request. And Carol, I'm not going to try your last name again. You also had 6th Street. If you identify yourself for the record, please.
Carol Roccanelli. I live in the 6th Street area, in the residential area. I'm already impacted by the school activities that go on there. I have 2 vehicles in my household. I am going to be trying to run back and forth to plug money into a meter. I work in the West Boulevard district, so I bike or walk to work frequently when I can. So to get back from my job to plug meters or vice versa, it has an impact. I didn't hear any discussion about how residents in the area who live where the parking is proposed, how are we going to be able to pay for this without being penalized constantly? From what you've said, it appears that the funding is to be used for more than just the downtown area, but those who work and live in the downtown area will be the most heavily impacted for infrastructure that's used by all of us. And so it's bearing an extra burden for many of us who use the downtown area frequently. As the parking meters go in, people will move to the town hour parking spots. I'm already challenged with that on certain events. I look at what we've done this summer to bring business into the downtown area with Summer on 7th. So as some of these summer festivals go on, I always see the impact up by Dakota Middle School. I can see the impact of the parking. So it's going to have an impact.
Thank you, ma'am. Just for point of clarification, Monica, and I don't think we covered it very well, can you talk about as far as the residential folks that would be impacted?
You're right. I did not mention that. What we had talked about doing is if there are residents that are impacted with parking meters and they don't have adequate off-street parking, the city could issue a residential parking permit similar to what we have for the leased parking spaces. You could either hang it on your mirror in your car, or there could be a sticker or something that would allow them to park on street, on those residential streets. That permit wouldn't be good for a downtown area, but it would be good for those residential areas so they could park and not have to pay the meter.
Thank you. Let's see, we also have a speaker request form for Mary Renka? 528 Quincy Street.
This is my third meeting, so I really sympathize with you guys. I can begin to understand what you're going through. We have Black Hills Psychiatry Associates, and we've been there for 31 years. We accept Medicare and Medicaid patients, which means we are serving sometimes a lower income population. Right now, the meters in front of our building, and we don't object to them, we're used to them, are 2-hour meters. This plan will take them from 25 cents an hour to 50 cents an hour. We have parking behind our building for our employees. 20 years ago, I served on the Downtown Parking Committee. We came up with the revelation that the problems were being caused by employees of businesses in the downtown area. But we also said there wasn't much we could do about it, that the employers needed to take responsibility for that. So 20 years later, we're dealing with this all over again. I want you to realize you're putting parking meters where there haven't been parking meters before. Kurt Weitzel spoke a little bit to what's going on in the country now. I think we need to consider that. Everything is going up. You are going to impact people tremendously. Are you going to stop and think, okay, I'll pay this meter, or I'll go out to the mall, or I'll go to the Carmike, or I'll go to the Rushmore? I don't think this plan is the answer. And I do sympathize with you. I do. There's got to be something we can do to make this easier. What about 2012 funds? Is that a dirty word anymore? I'm not sure. But I think there are many of us who would be happy to sit down again, or should we just scrap the whole plan and go home? Thanks for your time. I do sympathize with you, but I do hope you'll give more consideration to this. I don't think this is the answer. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Just point of clarification, the City Council has identified $3.8 million for downtown parking improvements through our 2012 program. Just so you know, parking ramps in downtown are extraordinarily expensive. To add the third level of our current parking ramp, which we're moving forward with at this time to help relieve some of the downtown parking, just that third level is $2.7 million for one level. So with that, let's see, we also have a speaker request form from Greg Wick, 1424 West Boulevard. Mr. Wick.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I appreciate the opportunity to speak this evening. My name is Greg Wick. I'm president of Pennington Title Company, and we're at 725 Kansas City Street. This is the third meeting that I've attended as well. I submitted written comments. I'm in favor of the current plan as to 2-hour parking on Kansas City Street. Alderman Koiker asked that question. We feel it's very important for our clients. We, in exchange, when we undertook our major expansion and renovation about 5 years ago, worked with the city. We created a 39-space parking lot. 23 of those spaces are for our employees, 16 for our clients. Some days that's not enough. After 5 and on weekends, we make that lot available for the Doll, which is even more important now for the Y and the surrounding churches. I also speak to you from kind of a unique perspective. My family and I have been members, or have been residents rather, of the West Boulevard Historic District for the past 17 years, though I obviously didn't get the memo about the brown shirts. And I'll hold somebody responsible for that. But I also would echo the sentiments of the residents of the West Boulevard Historic District. Obviously, it's a very unique district, has a very unique feel, and needs to be protected. So I appreciate all the work that Monica and particularly the mayor have put into this issue. It's a big one. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wick. We also have a speaker request form from Tom Vakurovich. This is your immediately around the Rapid City Library. Good evening, Tom.
Good evening, Mayor. I'm Tom Vakurovich from Rapid City here. Of course, I'm president of the United Corporation Investments. We have had 6 buildings in the downtown area. We now have 2, and I also served for 7 years under Mayor LaCroix on the Planning Commission, and we were battling this same problem at that time. And prior to that, worked with Governor Knipe administration for 4 years on the industrial development, an economic expansion agency in almost any community of any size that we went into. Parking, of course, was a problem. I'm here, however, today to get some questions answered for United Corporation. We're right across from the Rapid City Library. Over the weekends, we provide free parking for the library as well as at evening time. But my problem is I've got 25, we tore down the building and we now have a parking lot there. But I have 25 employees in the building, but, excuse me, we have 25 stalls, but we have 27 people. And so this makes us, on 7th Street here, they're going to make it a 10-hour parking, and we would much rather have 2 to 4 hours at the most. We've got just too many people in and out of the building to tie that down with people shopping downtown or working downtown or whatever. We've always felt it was our responsibility to provide parking for our employees, which they have, but 10 hours is just too long, and I'd like to have that considered. Also, the fact that we own our own lot does provide a great deal of extra income savings for the city. So if you could look at our building again across from the library, they're on the north side and we're right on the south side. We would really appreciate that. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Mark Kirkaby. This is dealing with the area at 3rd and Main.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will be extremely brief. Just to let you know, those that did not get that West Boulevard T-shirt, there still is a box of them sitting back here in the lobby. I'm here representing the Salvation Army. I did share some testimony with you. Do want to drop off some additional testimony from Harvey's Lock Shop, David Myler, a farmer's insurance agent, as well as from Raven Real Estate, and I'll give them to Monica if I could. Just backtracking just real quick, Monica has been a piece of cake to work with. Very knowledgeable, very friendly. I've been fortunate to spend some quality time with her over the last couple of years. But specifically, and I'm extremely pleased that right now, area little f has the potential to be reduced from the devastating 10 hours back to a 4 hours. And if we just look at that, in all honesty, even at a 4-hour parking time frame there, that allows any employees downtown to go stick in a couple of bucks a day and have parking to the detriment of those existing established businesses downtown. With that, the only potential that we have for expanding downtown Rapid City is certainly to go east. There is some discussion going on that perhaps a big sizable building downtown, but if you look at the real estate holdings of the Salvation Army just to the east of us, that the pretty substantial parking lot that Black Hills Federal Credit Union owns, that will be something. Those individuals will need parking. It certainly would be devastating to those individuals that invest that time and money to have their risk out there to generate customers, and there's no ability for these customers to park there, because I can assure you, if you're having trouble with parking downtown right now, and we have available in between those streets right now long-term parking, and it certainly is. You're talking 4 hours. That is definitely long-term parking. Our neighbors just to the north of us at Harvey's Lock Shop average 300 customers a day. And you can imagine if those parking spots were eliminated, and they certainly would be if those individuals decided to park there for 4 hours when it only takes you 3 minutes to go in there and make a key. I do know that the decisions you have in front of you are extremely important. I appreciate your time, and I just can't emphasize enough that the future of downtown certainly doesn't stop at 4th Street. It certainly is going to go east. Thank you for all you do.
Thank you so much. We also have a speaker request form from Julie Fry on the 6th Street property.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. You heard my father speak earlier, and we have been there 25 years this October. We would have a terrible time if you could imagine Dad at his age wheeling out 3 5-gallon buckets of something 2 blocks away and then having customers in the store wait because they couldn't get parking because of the meters in front of the store. It just, and then if we have big binders of carpet or there's so many heavy things that we carry out of the store. We don't want to have to walk a long way, nor do we want our customer to have to walk a long way. And we're still hoping the customer would come to us if they had to do a meter. And when Kelly was talking about the kids, the people that come with little kids to her store, I can't imagine being a mom of young kids again and trying to find a quarter in my purse while holding on to, and I'm sure every mother would know this, while holding on to a child, maybe watching another one so they didn't go out in the street and thinking, oh my gosh, there wasn't a meter here before, now I've got to find some change. Also, you had talked about buildings that were historical buildings or historical districts. I'm not sure, but wasn't Renner Engineering the first city hall? Okay, and that's right next to us as well, and I guess meters in front of the original city hall. That might kind of look tacky. And we do pay for all of our employees to park in the city lot. We understand that it is full, but there are a lot of people that would just park there. We've seen them go out and rub the little marks off their tires. We have said to our customers, go drive around the block really quick and then just pull back in here, because if we're putting a whole house together, it's going to take a little while. But we still don't want 4-hour parking for our customers, because we'll tell them to go park behind the store where we have our own parking, or we would feed the meter for them. But no meters would be great. Just keep it the way it is if you could, please.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Jeff Watson, Columbus and 8th Street.
Mr. Mayor, council members, thank you. My name is Jeff Watson, president of Black Hills Community Bank, our new facility being located at Mount Rushmore Road in Columbus. I would like to speak this evening in favor of the recommended change from 10-hour parking to 2-hour parking as evidenced by letter C. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We also have a speaker request form from Mike Finnegan. I have 8th and Quincy and YMCA. Mr. Finnegan.
I'm not speaking for the YMCA. I'm at Cato Thorstensen, and area C there, presently on the south east side of Quincy Street, that's unmetered parking. And quite a few of our employees park over there all day. If we make that 2-hour parking, they're either going to have to do the shuffle, or they're going to park over in the West Boulevard district. When we built our new addition, we had made a commitment with the YMCA's parking lot of taking 60 That's 60 spots in there and leasing them for our employees. And when that deal fell through, of course, that puts us in a bind. I guess we shouldn't have covered up our parking lot, but that's history now. So, but I'd like to encourage the council that the southeast, the part that's not metered now, to change that to 10-hour parking. That would help alleviate at least our employees going down the way. Thanks.
Okay, Monica, you got that? Okay, very good. We also have a speaker request form from Lee Geiger for the downtown area.
The purpose, as I understand it tonight, and this effort that has been referred to a little earlier, is over a 25-year-old process, is to maximize the desirability of downtown through the optimization of our parking assets. And one of the things that has repeatedly been brought up tonight is the uniformity of areas, in that an area or a block is 2 hours. That was fast. The time is, in terms of time, we have a vast area that's not metered, that's 2 hours. We have another large block of time that's 2-hour metered. What I'd like to speak to is reconsideration of how we're approaching this problem, because it's, as everyone's pointed out here tonight, the problem largely is individual, based on the kinds of businesses facing the streets. Everybody has a different kind of problem. We have attorneys that have meetings that last long over 2 hours, or if they have a 1-hour meeting, they want to take their client to lunch. And frankly, I've been at 613 Main Street now for well over 25 years. And we don't have a parking problem in that area until about 11 o'clock. And then and about 1 o'clock, we don't have a problem again. And then now we have a problem for defining parking spaces from about 4:30 till maybe 9:30 or 10. And that's a great testament to our restaurants and food and beverage people and the Elks Theater and so forth. But the point is this: if all of that area is just 2-hour parking, it doesn't work for a lot of people. But if you'd consider a manageable and changeable system, so that in a 2-hour area you might have meters, you might have 10 or 15% of the meters in those areas that are 4-hour meters. You might even have 1 or 2 that are 10-hour meters. So people that know that they have a long period of time can go in and find those metered spots and use them. So first of all, diversity throughout the whole area, so that there isn't one big block where people are concerned about a 4 or a 10-hour period in front of their building. Some portion of that zone can be a different time period. And as I see, we have both Republican and Democrat meters, so that works for everyone as well. And so the thing that, so first of all, A, a manageable system. Then B, the other thing is, let's maximize the use of our parking structures, and that is this. The parking structure, as I understand it, typically is sold in the range of 100% occupancy, but you can go up there, and those numbers are probably wrong. Higher? Okay. But the fact is that they are oversold, and yet when you go up there almost any time, they're about 60% occupied. I'd suggest putting meters in there and signing it well, so that people that want to use that, when I'm not there using my lease space, they can use it by plugging a meter. That's easily monitored by the programming or sacking of meters when that gets changed. The other thing is, let's assume that our meter people have some intelligence and the ability to make discretionary judgment. I've come downtown at 9:45 Saturday morning, found 4 cars on the street, 3 of which have tickets. And that's ridiculous. So flexibility, management, changeable, and discretion. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see, we also have a speaker request form from Charles Ray, 703 Quincy Street.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council. We have the building on
Quincy at 7th, directly across from the Dahl to the south. And currently we have 8 2-hour meters in front of our building, and they work very well. And it's very important that we have them. I understand that we will have some 2-hour meters on Quincy Street, but we only have about 4 spaces there. Our building houses a medical practice, a dental practice, and a dental laboratory. So we have a number of people that come there for their health care, and many of them are compromised and really need to be able to park. Now, when you put those 10-hour meters on 7th Street right there, and I don't know if I can mark that here, you know what we're talking about? On this side, yeah. Yeah, we're showing 10-hour meters on both sides there. We really need those 2-hour meters right there, and there's only 8 of them. And I'd like to ask that you consider giving us the 2-hour meters there as well as the ones on Quincy Street. We're happy to have the meters, but we must have them because with 10-hour meters we would have no parking for our patients there. So it's very important to us that you consider this request and give us those 2-hour meters there. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We have a speaker request form from Dan Sefner for the downtown area.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I have a page of notes. I don't think any of them are going to be any good right now. After listening to this, if you're not confused by now, how could you not be? Because there are so many ideas and opinions. I have worked downtown for 32 years. I wish I had $1 for every parking committee meeting I've been to and everything I have attended for downtown. I really believe this is not about me. This is about us. If West Boulevard had no downtown, where would they go? If East Boulevard had no downtown, where would they go? Downtown is viable energy right now for Rapid City. I'm putting my heart and soul in our downtown. I believe in it. I think it's important. I think everyone in this room needs it, loves it, and wants it. Now, all of our neighboring communities, Aberdeen, Bismarck, North Dakota, Sioux Falls, areas, have parking, upper level parking. We are sold out. We're adding a ramp. We are sold out. We need, no, I don't have an answer, Mr. Mayor or Council. We need upper level parking. We have lots downtown that are empty. They have sat empty since I was 24. They're one-level ramps, one-level parking. We have space up by Dakota Junior High, sitting there. Yes, I know some of the juniors use it as a practice field. It sits empty 80% of the time. A lot of our revenue is generated in our core. It's very important. And not just to me. Everyone in this room has a spot. Everyone has a business. Everyone has what they want and need. But what we need is unity because everyone enjoys what we have here and everyone wants to see growth. And without parking, and we all want convenience. Goodness knows, I owned a piano store for many years. I always said, if the customer could drive in the store, pick out a piano, not get out of their car and drive out the back, it would be best. Then they wouldn't have to talk about parking. But what we need is the convenience to park, for people to motivate, to get around, to enjoy their cell phones, and go wherever they need to go. So, truly, I look around our downtown core and I love it, and people know that I've lived here for many years. And we do have areas where downtown can park. We need extra parking. And Ron, I appreciate your statement very much, but downtown core, without it, a lot of us enjoy it and have no other place we want to go. We want to be there. We want Summers on 7th. We want action. We want to have fun. We want to do things. That's what it's about. And do I have an easy answer? No, because we have a lot of opinions in this room. I don't. Would I help with one? You bet. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from Rob Saylor, 601 St. Joe.
Good evening. My name's Rob Saylor. I'm here with my wife, Audra Saylor, who owns Audra's Bridal Gallery at 601 St. Joe. And I do want to, after Mr. Steffner's comments, I feel a little bit inadequate talking because I think he's really encapsulated what a lot of us as downtown business owners are trying to say. We're downtown doing business because that's where we want to be. We don't want to be a part of a strip mall that's been built off Rushmore Crossing, or some of the various other things that's been pursued in town. And personally, I think those are great developments for the city. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not opposed to the tax increment financing that's been done to promote that business development in town. But as the Fry said, and as Kelly said with her store, it's nearly impossible for those retail business owners downtown to do business in the turnover that they need. 4-hour parking is just too long for that. 2 hours is a good alternative. Like Kelly and the Frys both said, we would both prefer no meters at all on 6th Street, but we realize the need for the revenue. We realize that to address some of the problems that Mr. Steffner talked about, that those things don't get paid for out of just the end of a rainbow somewhere. So I understand the need for that. We would prefer things that stayed just exactly the way they are, but certainly if meters are required on 6th Street between St. Joe and Kansas City there, we would certainly prefer that those be no more than 2 hours. And I appreciate the effort that you're all putting in on this.
Thank you, sir. We also have a speaker request form from John Brewer, the downtown.
Good evening. My name is John Brewer. I'm with Destination Rapid City, and we office on Main Street downtown. Good evening, Mayor, Council, and welcome to another parking meeting. We're so glad you're working on it. We all have great concern. What I wanted to say tonight was simply, I'm not here because I have a business on Main Street. I work on Main Street. I'm here because Destination Rapid City represents what this community and the downtown expressed during revitalization task force meetings, during the Roger Brooks town meetings and presentations, and our vision of a vibrant, revitalized, redeveloped downtown, and the future that lays ahead of us, just ahead of us in Rapid City, requires your great wisdom and hopefully some finality to this discussion that has gone on. I thought 22 years was a long time, but Dan Steffner just beat me by a decade. So we're all hopeful for a good solution, and we understand the problems that you have. It seems to me that tonight we've heard from different stakeholders. And what this plan is setting out, or has been set out to do, is to work for the different stakeholders. Employees are a stakeholder. Shop owners are a stakeholder. Residents in the area are stakeholders. And certainly the reason that downtown businesses exist, customers and visitors to downtown are stakeholders. They all have a different need. When an employee needs that visitor spot, there's a little conflict. Then it's not a 2-hour meter or a 4-hour meter or a 10-hour meter, it's whatever that particular stakeholder needs at that time. And so what this plan does, and laid out initially in the same philosophy that was in the 1991 master plan for downtown that Monica referred to in her presentation, it tried to address that so all stakeholders have a place to park, and there's an equitable place to park and an affordable place to park and adequate parking. And of course vertical parking is what we would all like to see as the end result. One of the things that has made parking a little difficult that we've heard about is that some people feel, as Mr. Geiger said, the Republican-Democrat meters may not be well known to visitors that come to town, let alone our local citizens. Destination has started a program for wayfinding downtown. We hope to work with the city on this so that parking is designated and information about parking is available. So we would also say or I would say, this isn't about me. It's about Rapid City. It's about our future. It's about the vision that we've spelled out in hopes that downtown will be even bigger and better and more vibrant than it is now. So thank you for your work. Thank you for hearing us tonight.
Thank you. We do not have any further speaker requests. If you'd like to speak again, if you'd raise your hands and we'll identify when you come up to the podium. Mr. Brennan.
Stephen Brendan. My personal choice would be to see 2-hour parking throughout the downtown district. I think it's too important to keep traffic moving to these retailers downtown. But I also think that what we've done here, that as our job as a city is to provide infrastructure for these retail outlets downtown. It used to be that the downtown areas was the marketplace of the community. It's Rapid City, it's centrally located here. It's a good place for people to come and go. I think that putting meters down there is actually detrimental to businesses. Lee gave a real good comment, though, about for those customers that need a little more time, why not meter 4-hour spots so that those people that need that extra time, they have an opportunity to go there. Brilliant idea. Excellent. But what I'm saying here is we've done so much, this council and past councils, to promote business in this town, and that's great. But now here we're sitting again. Where's the parking for this business that you're trying to create? You've gotten the cart ahead of the horse again here. I'm sorry. The first thing that needed to be done was our infrastructure downtown, was parking. It still is parking. We've got to figure out a way to get these parking spaces in there. Like you said, we need leveled parking spaces. We need ramps downtown. We, as a city, are going to have to just bite the bullet and figure out a way of doing this. If it means taking more money from 2012, so be it. Let's get this done for these people downtown. Let's give them the opportunity to create more retail, to create more sales tax revenue for our city. If we try to go with these different districts and as far as the time limits and stuff, I think we're creating a big headache here. I think that the 4-hour metered was a good suggestion here. But one of the problems with putting up these ramps is, as businesses that have employees, we need to find an enforcement mechanism to where they can pay for this and they can make those employees use these. It doesn't do us any good to put up ramps if the employees aren't going to use them. So please, I hope you will keep the parking times down in the downtown district. Help these people out. If I had my druthers, I wouldn't see them paying a dime. I wouldn't see any meters because I just think that puts our downtown retailers at a disadvantage as to other businesses that are out in the outlying regions. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Additionals. Dan, if you come up and identify yourself, please.
My name is Dan Tribby, and I'm with Prairie Edge. Just like to thank you for the opportunity to address the council, Mayor. One thing that hasn't been talked about much tonight is the ability for this plan to change. Rapid City and downtown Rapid City, just from all of the things that we've talked about over the last 2 years with Roger Brooks and so many other things that are on the table, to me indicates that the next 5 years may bring a tremendous amount of change to downtown. And I would just like to make the comment that, Monica, you've worked so hard on this, but is this the concrete policy for the rest of time in downtown? You look at Main Street and you look at St. Joe, and I certainly sympathize and empathize with the Fries, and that might need to change. But Main Street and St. Joe in 3 years may need to change. We look at it now and we say no meters, but none of us can look into the future. If we do things with destinations such as the plaza, how much does that change downtown? And I would just like to ask the citizens of Rapid City to keep that in mind. At least the way I understand this isn't the concrete for happily ever after policy, but we keep that open mind to say, this is a starting place. This is something that Rapid City needs to do and embrace the parking issue. And if we keep clashing, we're never going to get to a starting place. So look at this as just that, as the starting place. something that we can reevaluate each and every year, however often that we think that we need to reevaluate it. But we do need a starting place, and just to keep in mind that change is coming to downtown Rapid City. Hopefully, it'll be very, very positive, and we can make this parking change as we grow. And that's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any additional comments? Anyone else would like to address the council? If not, I think what we'll do is we will go ahead and end the public comment period and open it up to discussion and/or suggestions by the council. Any recommendations, any motions as far as how to proceed? Turn your light on. Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I had more of a comment than anything, and I didn't really have a direction to proceed except for the fact that I think it'd be important for us to bring some recommendations to legal and finance or move some forward. But I wanted to make a comment about the comments earlier in reference to I have no intention of alleviating parking from downtown. I think the proposal is to increase parking downtown through a funding mechanism which has been identified primarily as metering. I think that's part of the conversation that's going on here. Earlier, a fellow from Mr. Wick from Penn Title talked about generating 39 parking spots next to his building, which is responsible. I think that, and I'm sure he could attest to what that cost him to do that. It comes at a huge price tag. And I think that when we talk about increasing parking downtown, we got to consider that, and metering the downtown and looking for options to provide more parking. That is where I'm getting at, and I'm hoping that I didn't miscommunicate that to somebody. Looking at 10-hour metering in the residential areas, to me, doesn't make any sense in any way, shape, or form. It just pushes the parking out into those areas, and those people, I think that there's viable options by metering the downtown consistently. Tonight, I haven't heard one person talk about anything larger than a 2-hour meter. I think that 2-hour meeting is appropriate. Looking at the 1991 proposal, one of the things that he talked about was the more covenant the parking spot, the higher price that should be paid for that parking spot. And as you filter out into, say, Kansas City Street, there's been made reference to Kansas City Street not being used. It's simply, for one reason, is that the parking's the same price, whether you're parking on Main Street or you're parking on Kansas City Street. Mr. Vikirovich talked about tearing down a building to add parking to his location. I think it's important that we talk about the reality of the fact that if you're locating a business downtown, there is limited parking in that area. And in regards to that, and I'll use my personal experience of trying to locate my wife's beauty shop, and you have the option of locating downtown. And we'll just use rough enough numbers, say $750 a month to locate a beauty shop downtown. Or you have the other option of going to a place that has parking spots for that building, specifically right in front of that building to the front door of that building at $1,000 a month for rent. I think that it's important that we understand moving forward when we make recommendations that this, to come to a conclusion and not spend the next 10 or 20 years talking about it, is to identify a funding source to provide parking ramps downtown. There's the thought of working with the YMCA to build a parking ramp there. The thought of, I know the area where the Rush Mount was being built, and we've sat on that project for 3 to 5 years that could provide parking. Maybe we move forward with or without that. I think that needs to be identified. In looking at bonding sources and having, and my understanding is that the way this is laid out and the metering and the revenue that's available from this metering will provide the opportunity for long-term parking for employees. Now, if you're an employer and you're allowing your employees to do the shuffle, well, shame on you. I think that's critical to your business to understand that they're affecting other people's businesses. And I'm not here to chastise anybody, but I want us to look at reality moving forward and not have to come back in 10 years and say, well, we've been talking about this for the last 20 years. I think it would be consistent to meter the entire downtown with 2-hour parking and look at bonding as soon as possible to build those ramps and maybe partner with the YMCA to help alleviate the problems on that side of town. And then you go towards the 5th Street side, you look at bonding for a parking ramp there. and alleviating some of that issues at a price that is specific to the people that are using the area, and that would be through the metering, and that would be my comments on that. So, and I'll yield to the rest of the council.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Lloyd LaCroix.
Thank you, Mayor. A lot of people worked hard on this to make this come forward. And with the changes that Monica had made, she made those from the comments that had come forward. I guess my recommendation, I liked the card part with the parking meters. They can use it as often as they want and have credit on it. What I'd like to see today is probably have this move forward, and the people that have brought up the concerns with 9th Street and so forth contact their council people, and as it goes forward, maybe they can change it as it goes. But I think this is a good draft. I think it's fair. I think it addressed a lot of the people's concerns that we've had in the last 4 months with this. And so I guess I would make the recommendation to move this forward to legal and finance, and if we have more concerns with it, have the people contact their council people up until that point. We can deal with it during those public comments. I just want to remember everybody that like Dan said, that this isn't set in stone. You can change these meters from 2, 4, 10. So if later on, if things ain't working, we can change them. We can come back and rework it and try to make it work for everybody. But I guess that would be my motion.
Okay. I'm going to clarify your motion just a little bit before I ask for a second, and that is, Monica, I think what he was addressing was the different proposals. There we go. Is that what you're proposing?
Yeah.
Okay. So the motion on the floor would be to send this forward. Let me restate that. The motion tonight would be to direct staff to come back to Legal and Finance for first reading of the ordinance as per the recommendations that you see on the screen. Is that correct?
Yes, and have that put on
Right.
the internet so they can look.
Absolutely. Do we have a second? Okay, thank you. We have a motion and a second. Discussion on that, please. Let's go to Alderman Quaker. And just before we start taking comments, we'll give everybody a little bit of a latitude here because of the fact that this is a pretty complex issue. So we'll try to give a little bit of latitude, just try not to take too much. With that, let's see. We have a couple lights. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple of comments. First is that I do not see the need to have the 2-hour parking in, for part of Quincy where it is now is fine, but for that whole 400 block of Quincy and Kansas City, I'm concerned about the effects of making that all 2-hour metered parking. And here's why. The price difference is the biggest concern for me, the 2-hour meters will be 50 cents an hour, and the 4-hour meters will be 25 cents an hour. And for those 2 blocks, and probably for all of the yellow areas, I think you're going to see an adverse effect by doing that, by having double the price over 4-hour parking. What it's going to do is going to just simply push the parking away from those areas. I can't remember who stated that there aren't a lot of cars parking on Kansas City Street now. We double the price, we're going to have even more issues with that. And I think that it ought to be 25 cents an hour across the board for 2-hour and 4-hour meters, and perhaps for the 10 hours as well. I think we're creating a whole nother set of problems by having such a huge price difference between the 2 and the 4-hour meters. I think we're making a mistake. I would also, and for the mayor will allow me to ask this, I would also like to know at an upcoming meeting the status of the Rushmont, and see where we're at with that process, because if it isn't going to proceed, then there are options the city can pursue there as well. But for the sake of discussion, I would like to offer an amendment to the motion I request that the 2-hour meters be 25 cents an hour, to be the same as the 4-hour meters.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, we have a motion and a second. Discussion on that motion. Alderman Olson, did you have a comment on that amendment? Let's go to Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't have a comment on that. I just think overall with the process that we're undertaking, so I mean, I can say it now or I can say it at a more appropriate time.
Karen, did you want to? Let's go back to Karen Olson and we'll hit some other lights here. So let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
Although I don't wish to speak to Sam's amendment, I think there's some important things that need to be a part of this discussion. And I've been working with this issue for several years. And I appreciate all the effort that's been made. And one of the driving forces of this whole conversation has been the need for more parking. And that seems to be synonymous with parking structures. And as all of you know, there's no free lunch and there's no free parking. Somebody has to pay for it. That just is the way it is. And as this parking proposal has come forward, one of the critical issues of it is that it generate revenue to enable us to actively attack that problem of providing parking structures. And so as I've watched it, one of the things that's very much a part of the plan is what is the revenue that it generates? It really needs to generate revenues for two purposes. Number one, we're changing the parking meters themselves. We are moving to a much more modern kind of a parking meter, which does allow us, increases the ability for us to create some level of flexibility, which means you can change them somewhat more simply than you could in the past. So the revenue that's associated with this metered parking is essentially paying for the new meters, for the equipment. Then secondly, under the original plan, those costs were recaptured rather quickly. So then the additional revenues go where the intent of the community, in my view, is it goes toward an accumulating fund that allows us to build these structures that everyone seems to find important, and I find important. I heard several of my colleagues and some in the audience comment about other cities who have been very successful with their downtowns, and one of the components of that is structured parking. Boise, Aberdeen, Sioux Falls all have structured parking, but all those parking structures are metered, so they are continuing to pay for that. As this conversation has gone forward, so that's an important element that mustn't be lost. So as we look at this plan, one of the things that in my mind needs to be ascertained is, as we make these changes, how does it affect the revenue of this project? And so we just need to understand that, because as the revenues diminish, then our payback on replacing the meters takes longer. It takes longer for the parking structures, therefore, to be put in place. So I think you as a public need to understand that. I'm trying as an elected official to understand it too. And lastly, as we make this decision, I would hope that one of the things that we do is make certain what the plan is, and then allow our staff to tell us what kind of revenue is generated by this variation of the plan. That will be very important to me as I listen to this discussion. And I understand the challenges. Nobody is less enthusiastic about putting money in a meter than me. In fact, just a few days ago, I was going to park on Kansas City Street and discovered it was 2-hour parking, and I was going longer than that, and I didn't have any money. The one thing that will happen that's good about this parking plan is the cards. I think the cards will be an enormous asset to our community because businesses will be able to give them as perks. Employees can share them. They could be given by employees to employers to employees. There's just a lot of great things that happen, and I don't think we should discount the 15 minutes free. 15 minutes free allows an awful lot of short stop parking that would be very valuable. Then the last comment I would make is we've tried for consistency for one reason, and that is for the interest of those who are less personally involved in everyday activity in Rapid City. A visitor coming to town will not, it's important that they understand, is this a 10-hour meter, is this a 4-hour meter, is this a 2-hour meter? That's complicated. Nothing is more annoying to people who come from out of town than to get a parking ticket because they didn't understand where it was they were parking. So as we've brought this plan forward, bear in mind what we tried to do was create something that's easy for people coming from other places to our community to understand. So as you think about this, every time we add, and I listened to Lee's diversity issue, but I think when you talk about understanding this, it'll be complicated. Let's see, does red mean this? Does blue mean that? And the last thing we want to do is have people who come to town to shop in our communities angry because they didn't understand what kind of a parking meter they were at. So I think those are all considerations. That'll be the end of my remarks. I sure think it's important at Legal and Finance that we understand the revenue generated, and I hope you as a community understand that generating revenue is a crucial part of solving this parking problem. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I asked the council at the beginning of this process tonight, and I think it's just wise to not try to make changes from here. I take notes, and I need time from a personal standpoint to go look at the notes. I took notes from every single one of the 31 speakers that spoke tonight. And what I would challenge the council for, I'm not going to say that changes don't need to be made to what was presented tonight. They probably do, and some of that seemed to be pretty low-hanging fruit in terms of what the public is saying. I think we get into trouble trying to set policy when we start to say, well, let's just take the 2-hour parking off from that street without having any understanding of what that does globally to the entire plan that we see up there and then to parking overall in the city. My recommendation, again, would be if we want to send this somewhere to have discussion, send the plan that came forward tonight, understanding that we heard the public and that those changes will get worked out through the process as we continue to go forward. I'm not trying to create a situation where everyday people in the public think that they have to come to all of these meetings. But at the same time, we get into trouble trying to say, let's just take off 9th Street and leave 8th Street this way. Let's take off Quincy to St. I think that's nonsense for us up here to try to do that. I took 31 different notes from folks here tonight, and I don't have a clue as to how the first person that spoke juxtaposed that to the 28th person that spoke without going back and looking at my notes. The changes that the council has recommended in terms of motions, I will vote against tonight, not because I don't think changes need to be made. I don't know what changes we're talking about making, so I think it's unwise for us to do that. Those are my comments.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderman Ron Kroger.
Thank you, Mayor. I have a couple questions here for either Monica or Marcia. The map we have up there on the screen, is that the whole downtown business district, or is it more than the downtown business
It's more than the downtown
It's more
business
than downtown
district.
business district. You know, one of the problems I see is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but on the downtown business district, if I'm a business owner and I want to lease a spot downtown or I want to buy a building and put a business in there, I have no parking requirements.
Correct.
That creates a problem. If I'm outside of the district, if I lease or I buy a building, I have parking requirements that I have to comply with, or otherwise I cannot put my business in that building. So that is what is really where we're at today, is that's created a problem of not having the businesses downtown provide the parking for their clients and for their employees. So I guess my question is this: has the city ever looked at implementing a downtown paving, I think it's a paving district, where you can charge a fee to the property that can be used for parking ramps, paved parking, or whatever it might be. Have we ever looked at anything like that, where we could say incorporate, take the whole area down there kind of and say, take the 2-hour parking meters, apply 2-hour parking meters, using that money along with a downtown district paving plan or something, that where the business owners downtown are also buying into it to provide parking for their people and for their clients. Have we ever looked at that?
I guess I
I'm going to
haven't
go to
been here
Monica
long
and I'm going to go
enough
to Jason. I'm not sure if under state statute we have the ability to do that, other than maybe possibly through a bid district. But I mean, as far as any kind of assessment project, I think that I can't think of anything that would allow us to do that. Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. Off the top of my head, I can't think of anything that would allow that. The bid district would be my first thought as to one way to accomplish it, but I'm not aware of another mechanism that would apply specifically to pavement and parking in that way.
Okay, Mr. Krog, you have the floor, sir.
Mayor, if we could, I'd like staff to be able to look at that and see if there's a possibility. I mean, the county can do a fire district, a road district, or whatever. I don't know why we can't do a district inside
parking
the city,
district.
a parking district inside the city limits. But like I said, you know, we've created this problem by allowing businesses to go in there and not have to provide any parking at all. And you know, this plan here, I see a lot of problems. And I think everybody agrees, but I think that's something we should also look at, because I think that way it's a buy-in from the general public that's going to use those services, or that they go down to the stores to buy, and the property owners themselves are helping to pay for the parking. I think that would be a good solution if it's possible. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Let's go to Alderwoman Deb Hadcock.
Are we talking about 2-hour meters at 50 cents, or are we back to just making a speech?
Right now, there is an amendment on the floor, and that is to take all meters to, I believe it was 25 cents per hour. Is that correct? 2-hour meters. Only the 2-hour meters to 25 cents.
Okay. And then staff could tell us why they put those at 50 cents.
Typically, the parking spaces that are closer in and more valuable are going to be a higher cost than your longer term parking spaces would be, or your less desirable parking spaces. It's law of supply and demand. 2-hour, if they're closer to the businesses, they cost more than a 4-hour. And also the fact of feeding the meter. To feed a 2-hour meter at 50 cents an hour is going to be more expensive than for an employee to go to park at a 10-hour meter. So those were the reasonings behind that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I don't know if I have much to say on that right now. I just wanted the discussion to second that motion for that reason. But on the parking plan, at this point, I'd like to take a look at all these changes before I decide that this is a good plan at this point. And I think to take this to legal and finance and talk about this with the changes at this point, if they want to recommend them, that's fine, because everybody at this point will know what the changes are. But I'd like to take a look at it before we do that tonight and just change everything where it needs to be as well. So my motion would be to, if it's a substitute, take this to legal and finance without the changes, but all the changes that were made tonight be put on the map. So if they want to change those will be amendment to the changes that are on this map today, because at this point I'm not willing to vote that this is all okay with me. With the historic district, some of the changes on the 2 hours, I don't know, on the 50-cent meters, I need to think about that. This is a lot of different changes to say this is a great start, let's go ahead and do it. I'd like to kind of see what we need to do, and if I really want to do that, being in most of this area being my district and Sam's district, this is a lot of effect on our constituents. So That would be my recommendation, is take it to legal and finance and have staff put all the changes that were put on this map on there at this point.
Just for clarification, that's pretty much what the original motion was. That was what the original motion was.
I think they were approving it tonight with the changes, if I'm correct.
No, just so you know, the only thing that this committee can do tonight is make recommendations. Nothing on the agenda allows us to actually approve it in any stretch. It's recommendations only. Jason, help me out here. What's your recommendation?
The second item on the agenda is direction to staff. So really the only thing the council could do is give me direction in how you want the ordinance prepared.
So we're back to the original motion then?
So they're saying to take it back to legal and finance, or take this with the changes recommended to legal and finance.
Jason?
I think you had, the original motion was to approve as presented, and then I think there was an amendment offered, and I think the amendment is what's on the floor at this point.
Nope, she's offering a substitute motion.
And I think the substitute motion that was offered is substantially the same as the original motion.
Yep.
So that would be out of order at this point. You need to dispose of the amendment, and then if you want to make any other changes to the original motion, you can do it at that time.
Okay, that's where I was headed. Very good. So we are on,
Am I
Deb, I'm going
confused?
to give you the floor.
Am I confused?
No, just so you know, let me try and, the motion that you're making is,
put
for all
the-
practical purposes, the same as the original motion, and you can't have two similar motions.
But aren't they taking to legal and finance with the changes? I'm saying there isn't any changes yet. Those people at legal and finance need to make these changes at legal and finance. I'm not willing to put all those changes on there at this point already at legal and finance. Do you understand what I'm saying? I don't want the changes to be on here yet.
I'm sorry, I
When it's recommended.
I thought your motion was to bring all the changes to legal and finance. I thought that
Yes.
you stated that.
But you'd start with the original map, and then at legal and finance, if they wanted to decide they wanted to take historic district, change from 2 hour to 4 hour, they can do it there instead
Okay.
of us
Let's do
piecing it together right now.
Let's do this the easy way. The original motion maker was who? Okay, Lloyd? Nice try. Didn't get quite a. I'm going to ask. I'm going to try to move this along. Was your original motion to basically just take all the information, leave the plan is, and take this information to legal and finance?
Yes.
Thank you. I thought so.
What I was what I was trying to do is to get this on the internet and this information with this, both legal and finance,
Yep.
so we can take a look at the big picture and listen to the information that we had tonight.
Okay. And who was the seconder on the original motion?
Bill.
Bill. Okay. Is that all right with you? Okay. So, just for point of clarification, the original motion was to basically not amend the plan tonight, but to move forward with the map of the plan that we have in front of us, but also provide that information that's up on the screen, put everything on the internet. Okay? The amendment, which is the motion on the floor, is to change the 2 hour meters to 25 cents, from 50 cents back to 25 cents. So we do need to vote on the amendment because we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the amendment? I have a number of lights here. I'm tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to clear the board real quick. And, hang on, let me clear it. If everybody would just give me a second. There we go. If you turn your light on, if you have any discussion about the amendment. With that, let's go to Alderman Bill Okrepke on the amendment only, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just have one question for clarification. When you talk about whatever plan we're moving forward, was it going to be this plan that we have at the dais, or is it that plan because it's different?
The plan that we move forward is a plan that is on the dais, but there will also be the additional information that you see up on the screen.
Okay.
We haven't changed anything.
Well, the reason why I'm asking is that right in here, these are still, these are marked.
Right now, we haven't changed anything. So the plan to move forward is what you see in front of you. But it will come with also the recommendations that you see up on the board right now. That will be available both at the meeting and on the website.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Let's go to Alderwoman Karen Olson.
I'll be opposed to this change. I think we need to look at the global issues first, and so I will not be in favor of the amendment.
Very good. Further discussion on the amendment. Let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to withdraw my amendment, but I will be bringing it back up at committee.
Okay, any objection to him withdrawing? If not, the chair will rule that the amendment has been withdrawn and we're back to the original motion. Original motion, of course, is to send the plan to Legal and Finance along with the possible recommendations. Okay, let's go to Alderman Malcolm Chapman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I support the motion that's the current motion that's on the floor, but I just have a question for clarification. What will come forward is the plan that's here at the dais, and then we'll also get a copy of what's on the screen. Will we also get a copy of all of the comments that the folks tonight made? I'm not saying put it on the plan, but just a laundry list of all of the comments that were made tonight. Will that be also attached for Legal and Finance?
We can certainly make it so.
I would ask the motion maker to include that with the motion then.
So, is that all right with the motion maker? Sure. And the seconder? Okay, very good. So Monica will basically give some bullet points as far as the discussion. She can pull that off the tape. Okay. Anything else? Alderman Chapman, you had the floor. Let's go to Alderman Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can appreciate that motion on the floor, and I will support it. But I feel like the downtown employee doing the parking lot shuffle here. I don't think we're attacking the problem, and the problem is a lack of parking spots. We can shuffle the parking meters from one position to the other all night long and all year for the next 10 years. But I would appreciate it if somewhere along the line, if we had a plan that would provide for more parking, and if it takes the metering to do that, and then to accommodate and build the parking ramps, then I'm going to support it. Without that, I won't support this plan in any way, shape, or form without a long-term solution. I'm not going to be sitting out in the audience in 10 years from now going, yep, we talked about that 10 years ago. So just with that being made, Matt mentioned. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Jason Green, City Attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to be crystal clear about the motion. The motion is simply to forward this information to Legal and Finance for further action. It is not in any way to direct the preparation of an ordinance at this point.
That is correct.
Thank you for the clarification.
Okay. Any further discussion? Any further discussion? Anyone wish to speak before Alderman Quaker speaks for the second time? If not, let's go to Alderman Sam Quaker.
I was just going to ask which Legal and Finance meeting, the 1st or the 15th? 2 days from now or 2 weeks from now?
It'll be 2 weeks from now.
15th of October.
Okay, very good.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing that up. Okay, so everyone clear on the motion? Will be taken to the second Legal and Finance Committee meeting of October. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Chair would look for a motion to adjourn. Whoop, what's that? Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. I still think that, I don't know when it's going to be appropriate, or the appropriate time to really, take a look at the ordinance itself. I mean, my comments about me getting a ticket and those kinds of things, and the shuffle, and how do we make sure that we, so things like that happen to me gets addressed. So what's the appropriate time for that?
You can do that next Legal and Finance Committee meeting. The only problem with the special council meeting, unless it's specifically on the agenda, we can't address it. So unfortunately, we can't do that tonight. So, do we have a motion and a second to adjourn? Any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We are adjourned. Thank you.